Hi again, listeners. Welcome back to another Footnote episode of the Fantasy Animation Podcast. I'm Alex Sargent.
I'm Chris Holliday.
We're going to do Studio Ghibli, Chris. We're going to do it in 10 minutes.
Yeah, sorry, just before we start, I now know how to say it because we often have a debate around Ghibli, and actually we now know how to say it. Studio Ghibli. We can do it, we can talk about it. Well, we can talk about it, but crucially our special guest can
Yes, the reason we know how to say it is our special guest, Susan Napier, is still here in the room with us from last week's episode. So, Susan, we're going to see if we can flag up where we can even start to crack the nut that is Studio Ghibli. So I guess if there's anyone out there thinking of writing something on this or want to know more about it, give us a very nice quick pot history of what Studio Ghibli is, and then we'll see what we can go from there. So Studio Ghibli in the Crib Notes version. What is it and why would we be interested in it?
That's not
Big
that
question.
difficult, actually. Because
Okay.
Ghibli is the most important non-American animation studio in the world. I hope you both would agree.
Yes.
And of course there are many others, but Ghibli over the last, it was formed in 1984, so it's almost exactly 30 years, coming up on 30 years. It has become almost the kind of alternative to Disney in many, many people's minds. And again, globally, this is what's so amazing, that the studio has really gotten influence, not just started in Japan, remained kind of homegrown for probably about 15 or 20 years. Then with the internet, people started becoming more aware of it. And then in 1997, there was an historic agreement with Walt Disney where they became partners with Disney for distributing animation in America. And then in 2002, I think, their film Spirited Away, which again was released under the Disney auspices, won the Academy Award for Best Animated Movie. And I think it's so far the only non-American animated movie to win an award, an Academy Award. It also won the Golden Bear in the Berlin Film Festival the same year. So Ghibli is seen as a force, as a presence in the animated world. At the same time, I can't pretend it has anything like the huge financing of Disney. It doesn't gobble up other studios like Marvel. It doesn't. Although it's very appreciated by Pixar, it doesn't have any other kind of minor subsidiaries. At this point, it does have. It actually has a computer game, and it does have a lot of merchandise, very cute products, and actually. In one way, it's going a little bit Disney-esque, is it's just this month, in November, has opened its first theme park.
Yes, I heard about this.
The Ghibli theme park outside of Nagoya in Japan. And so far the reviews have been good. It's not like Disney, it doesn't have rides, but it's still going in a kind of direction that we can understand, where it's trying to kind of capitalize on the many incredible characters and stories and just a high level of animation to bring more and more, have more and more different ways of approaching the studio. One other obvious one, how could I not mention it, is this very month in London, started in October, it's going on through January. There is the Royal Shakespeare Company is performing a musical version of a very famous Ghibli film, My Neighbor Totoro. The performance is sold out within a couple of days when it was announced. It is absolutely sold out performances. I was there last night at the Barbican, which has over 1,000 seats, and they were all filled with very, very happy, delighted people. The reviews have generally been very, very good, but you really have to think about this for a moment. Here is a small Japanese animation studio, not run by a big business, still run by the two people who started it back in 1984, that has this kind of global influence that it could engender the London, the Royal Society, Royal Shakespeare Society, to do a sold-out musical, that it can have a theme park which undoubtedly will attract millions of people, that has merchandise that is incredibly popular, and it has movies that are perennially on the best animation movies of all-time list.
Yeah. So there's a degree of kind of synonymy between what we would call Japanese anime, and then Studio Ghibli. Is that a kind of problematic relationship? Because obviously, knowing from your writing, knowing from and one of your books from it was Akira to Princess Mononoke, now is Akira to Howl's Moving Castle. Obviously, there is a distinction between Ghibli's way of seeing the world versus the diversity, and I know that you've written on lots and lots of different kinds of anime, and so I suppose, is there a sort of, I don't know, from a scholarly perspective, a kind of methodological fascination with how Ghibli have become so synonymous with Japanese anime, and maybe part of the work is to also claim for other studios, whilst at the same time acknowledging how incredible these 20-odd films are?
That's a very interesting question. Miyazaki himself does not necessarily like anime, what he sees as anime, which is all the other studios that are making Japanese animated series. These are mainly anime in Japan, tends to be series for television, but there are a few major directors who are not part of Ghibli who are very, very important and do brilliant work. I'm thinking, of course, of the person who did Your Name, which is another global success, and Shinkai Makoto.
Yes.
And he's often known as the next Miyazaki being the main director at Ghibli. Yeah. But he definitely has his own distinctive quality. In general, I mean, anime, as I say, it's a different kind of industry than Ghibli has. Most anime studios are not that well funded. They are working in very, very strict timelines, and they are generally, their anime is based on manga. In fact, some of the most famous and popular anime come from very popular anime series, so they have that kind of tie. Ghibli, on the other hand, does totally original feature-length films. They may be based on something, but usually that something is a book, often a Western book, a book like Howl's Moving Castle, written by Diana Wynne Jones. They certainly have influences from all other things, including no doubt anime, but they are thicker, more dense, more conceptualized, I guess you could say, because they are feature films.
Yeah.
And there are no sequels. I mean, that's quite amazing when you think about it.
It is,
no
it
sequels,
yeah.
Unlike some movie animated studios we could think about.
Yeah.
So each one is a work of love and deep detail and creation, and it's coming out. They work like demons under a very strong, sort of powerful person at the head. His name is Toshio Suzuki. He's a producer. As I said, he's been there since Ghibli was formed in 1984. Increasingly, he's getting more powerful, I think. And he and the remaining director, major director Miyazaki, have a very strong partnership. But it's a very different kind of world than anime. And I'm not saying against anime. There's some great anime around too, of course. But it's
So what's because I think a lot of people will think Ghibli, they'll think Miyazaki, they'll think Miyazaki, they'll think Ghibli.
Yeah.
How it's obviously not quite as synonymous with that. So
No.
Can we articulate sort of where the gaps are or where the fissures are?
Well, I think Ghibli was begun with Miyazaki and one other director, a man named Takahata, who was a brilliant director. He unfortunately died, I think now it's 4 years ago. But Takahata was responsible for some of Ghibli's most extraordinary films. You've probably heard of The Grave of the Fireflies. That's a brilliant, tragic film about two children during World War II, and it's very well known as an anti-war film. Yeah. Really quite stunningly moving, and much more realistic. It's the kind of thing that you show people who don't like animation or don't believe that animation can be anything more than trivial children's silly things. So originally there was Takahata and Miyazaki, and there was definitely hope that it was going to become a bigger studio with more up and coming young talent coming in. Didn't quite work that way. I suspect that Takahata and Miyazaki, and I'm pretty sure I'm right, are tough babies. They are taskmasters, they are perfectionists, they are workaholics, which you sort of have to be if you're going to be creating and maintaining an animation studio in Tokyo from 1980 through now. But they had one amazing young director named Kondo, who unfortunately died of an aneurysm after having directed one film. So there are other non-Miyazaki, non-Takahata films in the Ghibli canon, but as I said, Kondo died before doing anything else. Since Kondo's death, there's been hope that maybe Miyazaki's son, Goro, would kind of take the mantle. And that it's hard to kind of comment about. His first film was based on an Ursula K. Le Guin novel, Tales from Earthsea. I don't know if you saw that.
I have, yeah. It's okay.
Yeah, it's okay, exactly. But it doesn't have the magic. And then he's done a couple of others, which are not bad. But it's really difficult to say. I mean, maybe one of the big questions is what is going to happen to Ghibli once Miyazaki retires, because it really is kind of almost like a one-man show, one man and his son show.
Yeah, sure.
So who knows?
Yeah.
But,
We're running very short of time, but I guess as a final question, so if people wanted to read more about Ghibli, I mean, your work, that'll
be going in the bibliography.
That's a 2-week holiday on the beach there, just to get through all the really important stuff you've written on this as well. But are there any others? And we'll link all of those in the reading list. But are there any other sort of themes or particular bits of work that might make interesting
reading?
Yeah. Well, I'm excited about Reina Denison's forthcoming book on Ghibli from the industrial point of view.
Oh, yeah.
It's not apparently available yet. It'll be available in 2023.
I think that's right.
Yeah.
She's written some very good stuff. So I'm very, very interested in that. And I believe, and I wish I could be more sure about this, but there's someone at Newcastle, I believe, Shiro Yoshioka, who has been working on Miyazaki for many years. And I'm not sure if he's going to be having a book out yet or not, but I know he's
do some digging, and
Yoshioka.
stick it in the.
Oh, and then there's a nice book by Raz Greenberg on early Miyazaki.
Yeah.
So that's certainly worth.
Raz.
So yeah.
Brilliant.
Really.
Susan, thank you very much.
My
That's
pleasure.
Ghibli in 10 minutes. It's impossible, but we've managed to do it, a bit like the films themselves.
Well, I've done very little in terms of the definitional work.
Absolutely. Thanks, everybody. If you have a suggestion for a future footnote, you know where to find us. It's Fananim Research, FANANIM Research @gmail.com. Same for the Twitter, Facebook, Instagram handles, and the website is fantasy-animation.org. We'll see you next time.
Bye.